Well, welcome everybody to the call. My name is Brad Doyle, and I'll be the host this evening. I have the pleasure tonight of introducing our speaker. Dr. Afa+Palu is the Chief Science Officer at ZNOA and probably knows more about Noni than any person on the planet. And so it's exciting to have him as part of this team and to lead this webinar to talk about Nuku+Hiva and Noni, the next generation. So without taking any of his time, because he's got so much information to give us, I want to introduce to you Dr. Afa+Palu.
Hey, thank you, Brad. Appreciate your introduction. And also, I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar. It's so good to be here with you. I want you to know that I don't just say that for the heck of it, but I say that because I really mean it. And I would like to share a lot of information tonight, and hopefully what I will share, it will help you understand Nuku+Hiva and part of Nuku+Hiva, and also some of the things that you might be used to answer some of the questions that those who always ask. So, okay, this is for educational purposes only, and at the end I will have you, if you have any questions, then I want you to send those questions directly to me via my email, okay? But hopefully this is to educate you so that you are well aware of the benefits and some of the things connected to Nuku+Hiva. By the way, I want you to know that I love Nuku+Hiva. I drink Nuku+Hiva in the morning, do Nuku+Hiva during lunchtime and dinner time, and before I go to bed. So, I like to title this presentation, and going forward, hopefully we will be doing this webinar every other week or every week. It's called Advance+Noni+Science. And because of the things that I have discovered and things that I have, papers that I have offered and studies of Noni, I want you to know that every study that have been done on Noni, I have them in my possession. So I built a library for so many years now. So as I do routinely, I go and read some of those research have been done earlier and some that just was published yesterday, so that I'm well aware of the science of Noni. So here at ZNOA, we're very advanced in our knowledge of Noni science. So Nuku+Hiva, I want you to know straight off the bat, is a plant of traditional knowledge and scientific innovation. And I'll show you a little bit more about it in a few minutes. So for those of you who have never heard me before, and I apologize to those who have seen me talk about this before, very briefly, I want you to know this because this is relevant to the advanced Noni-Science, okay? So my 8th great-great-grandfather, His Majesty, King Afa+Palu, was the one who welcomed Captain James Cook to the island of Tonga. And because of the work that Cook done, and for those of you who did not know, Captain Cook also brought with him, as customary in his time, a botanist that's always traveled with him. So Foster and Foster, there's a father and a son, and many others, Joseph Banks, among others who travel with him. And because of the things they note, the people who use the plants and things like that, that's why we have a written documentation of using of medicinal plants in the South Pacific and especially in Tonga. Now, it's interestingly, because in my family, it comes by the word of mouth, and traditional healing in my family started with my mother and my grandmother and went all the way. Okay, there's somebody's, how do I go back there? difficulties, connection. Ah. Okay. So because of those knowledge that goes all the way back to 950 AD, my mother and my grandmother taught me how to collect medicinal plants, how to prepare them, taught me about the plants, what they are for, and all of those kind of things. All of those knowledge have been taught, and I have learned, and I have prepared those medicinal plants. It's interestingly, I want to make a note. King Fatafehipau, the Fatafehi family, interestingly, if you look at the picture, at this part right here, this is called the Fata in Tonga. And the fehi plants, usually those are made from the fehi plants. And also the leaves of the fehi plant is a medicinal plant in Tonga for wound healing, among other things. So, excuse me. So this family was well known, and that's the reason why they call it the Fata fehi. The fata is made of the fehi, and also they put a lot of the fehi leaves in there for medicinal purposes. And also a lot of those medicinal things using medicinal plants in Tonga, including noni. And those are the kind of things that I have learned from my mother and my grandmother. So what I like to talk about today, I like to focus on the noni itself in Nuku+Hiva. And I know there are other 8 fruits in Nuku+Hiva, but I want you to all focus with me on the noni, which is majority of the product is the noni. Okay. There is always a lot of questions since the launch of the Nuku+Hiva in April. The question has always been, why does Sanoa use fermented nectar and noni fruit puree in Nuku+Hiva? Now, this is the time to address these questions, because there is always people who said that in a previous employment that we did not support the fermented nectar. That is wrong, and that is not true. So I joined that company, and they already have the product. But we want to focus in, why do we use those 2 things? And I want to show it to you, because my purpose tonight is to help you and to answer these questions, because it's very important. Now, that is the most important question of this evening. Why do we use fermented nectar and the noni fruit puree in Nuku+Hiva? Okay, number 1, the answer. The Polynesian traditional healers, including my mother and my grandmother, and everywhere in Polynesia, has always used the fermented noni nectar for thousands of years, which might explain the so much health benefits that they enjoy. Okay, and for the reasons why noni was part of the canoe plans, because everywhere they move from island to island, they always take the noni with them. Okay, that's the first question. So, as you know, when my ancestors was first used the noni, we used a big coconut that we call in Tonga niwai, meaning the coconut which is only for the water. And niwai is not that, does not taste that good compared to the regular coconut. Niwai is so big, some of them the size of a watermelon. You have to see those to believe it. Okay. Since I grew up in that family and that environment, I have seen those prepared, and I have helped prepare them. Lucky, towards the end, when we started to get a lot of these glass bottles and jars and things like that, which are much more easier to use instead of the niwai. Niwai, not everybody have that kind of coconut, and sometimes you gotta walk miles to go get that coconut. Plus, you gotta go ask the people who have those coconuts for that kind of thing. So this had eliminated part of that problem, at least for me when I was a kid, using to collect medicinal plants. But nevertheless, they work very similar, which is you pick the ripe noni fruit, put them in the glass bottle or jar, and you close them. And you put them in the fata. Remember, I showed you that place in the slides earlier. And after a month or so, then you bring it down, open it. The smell is not nice, but there is juice that are in there at the bottom. Then you pour those out. Those are the things that my grandmother, my mother used to give to us to drink, and especially when we were sick. And after another few weeks, then you almost is about a total of 3 months. And then you discard that, wash it, and then you start all over again. So that is the first answer to the question. Okay. Now, the second answer to the question of why we use the fermented nectar and the noni fruit puree. You know that John Wadsworth started the billion-dollar industry, and using the noni fruit puree. That was over 26 years ago. Now, after a lot of knowledge and advanced scientific knowledge on noni and how to produce products and the flavoring system, John Wadsworth started another noni product. Only this time, we combined the fermented nectar out of respect to my ancestors and those of Polynesian and other tropical islands wherever you find noni, and the noni fruit puree for increasing health benefits. Okay. Now, as you have seen this before, so John Wadsworth, as he explained previously, he decided that it's better to do the noni puree based on the things that he had done before. And so that's the reason why the fermented noni nectar was not included. However, as we here at Sanoa, with traditional knowledge that far exceeds anybody in any company and also the noni science, we realized the importance of combining the two. And therefore, we combined the fermented noni nectar, which contains, by the way, both new phytonutrients and erythroids not presently found in non-fermented noni fruit puree or nectar. Okay, let me repeat that one more time because this is very important. This is the third answer to the question. So we have found from other people's research as we work together and collaborated that the fermented noni nectar contains new phytonutrients that you cannot find that in a puree, and you cannot find that in the non-fermented noni nectar. Okay, so in fact, research have shown, it's an interesting research done by Pino and colleagues. It has shown that, as a matter of fact, there are 67 new phytonutrients found in the fermented noni nectar, but not in the non-fermented noni nectar or the noni fruit puree. So that is the answer number 3 to the questions. Interestingly, if you look at things that we have shared before about Nuku+Hiva, and you see that the footprint or the fingerprint of the noni and all the components of Nuku+Hiva is far more than what others have done. So this right here really shows the footprint or the fingerprint of the Nuku+Hiva product. Okay. Now, also make sure that you remember that there are 67 new phytonutrients and erythroids that are not found in the non-fermented noni nectar or the noni fruit puree. So those we do not have any of the markers in order to mark them when you run them on a HPLC in order to see the real footprint of noni. So whatever you saw here is, I would say, this is about 80% of what's in there. there is 20% more that we don't even know that are not in there. Okay. So, as I said, we have personally, I have evaluated all the studies that have been done on noni up to this day, and select out all the fermented noni research studies. Interestingly, there are a lot more studies using fermented noni nectar than the fruit puree. So looking at all the evidences, it helps explain the increased health benefits alluded to by Polynesian traditional healers and the modern uses of Nuku+Hiva. Okay. So what I'd like to show you is a brief summary of scientific evidences concerning the new found phytonutrients, potential health benefits, and the activities of the fermented noni nectar. Okay, number one is an interesting study done by Young, and they were looking for some components of the fermented noni nectar to see, do they have anti-inflammatory? Do they have anything to do with detoxifying of the noni health effects that most people are talking about? And they found a lot of things interesting. Number one, they found three things that I like to focus on. They found a new fatty acid ester disaccharide, which is interesting, had never been found before. Also, they found a ascorbic acid is a vitamin C derivative. So they found a derivative of the vitamin C. Now, as you know, noni has the highest vitamin C than any other fruits. However, when you pasteurize them or fermented, those vitamin C goes down. But what we forgot, and a lot of scientists forgot to look at, that they need to look at derivatives of vitamin C. A lot of times vitamin C are broken down to something else, compound. Those are the compounds that we need to look for and quantify. And I'll show you some of them in a few slides later. And you'll be amazed at the benefits that has already been discovered from these compounds. Okay. And then the last but not the least from this study, they also found a new erythroid glycoside. This is very important because those erythroids have been established beginning from Dr. Ralph Heineke's work, which is a good friend of mine, and also by Dr. Oscar Lehmann back in 1950s in the University of Hawaii. And Dr. Lehmann, I remember in his paper, he said, there might be more erythroids in this fruit. You have to remember that the apparatus, the HPLCs, the HPLC-MS, and the apparatus that we have today did not exist in his time. Therefore, we're far more advanced in our knowledge of noni and other medicinal plants because scientists worldwide get access to this new machinery, which give you an idea of quantifying some of these compounds and what they are. So we have been blessed tremendously. Now, in the same study, they isolated different compounds, and there were like at least 12 to 13 of them, and they start testing those compounds. They found something interesting because compounds number 2 and number 7, it shows that it had moderate inhibitory activities against DNF, or the DNF is usually when you see that DNF alpha is connected to inflammation and is connected to a lot of human diseases. Okay, so it's always good to, if you find a compound or a medicinal plant that actually inhibit those, and fermented noni nectar does. Okay, and they also found something interesting to me because we have thought about this for a long time. Compounds number 4 and number 6, it actually considerably, significantly increases this quinone reductase 1. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with quinone reductase 1, usually when this enzyme increases, from a lot of research that have been done by others, it shows that it has the anti-cancer properties. Okay, so that is not new, because Dr. Annie Hirosumi's work, by the way, was done on fermented noni nectar, shows that it has anti-cancer effects in mice. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides. But this is very, very important, because also it indicates that noni helps with the detoxification process. And let me show you this. This is an example. Okay. So when TNF alpha is inhibited, it leads to healthy inflammation by lessening the inflammatory conditions. Now, you might be asking, so what is a healthy inflammation? Healthy inflammation, as you know, think about it this way. If I am in a dark room, I flip the light on, I can see everything. And when I'm done with doing my homework or study, time to go to sleep, I flip the light off and it go back to dark. So in a way, very similar to that, when you, let's say you get a cut or sick from anything, that the inflammatory reaction of the body is to contain those, whether it be bacterial, whether it be fungal or viral. Okay, you need to contain those. So inflammation has to be turned on. And when you drink your noni or take any medication or pharmaceutical drugs that help control inflammation, then when inflammation is done, then it needs to be turned off. Because if you don't, it will lead to a whole lot of problems. Okay, if you take a look at these key actions attributed to TNF, you can see that TNF, of all of the action you see on the far right, increase inflammation, increase cell infiltration, increase angiogenesis. So there's nothing, usually nothing could come out of it. Okay, yes, it has its purposes, but it needs to be turned off. And sometimes inflammation is turned off, but this TNF alpha is still on, which leads to what they call, quote unquote, low inflammatory condition, end of quote. Okay, so this is very important. Remember, we talked about the quinone reductase inducer before from a different study. It actually helped with normal detoxification process, okay, by lessening the free radicals, and we know what free radicals do. They attack all the cells, okay, and electrophiles that interfere with the normal cellular processes. Okay. Now, in another interesting study by Hatoko and colleagues, they wanted to see, by comparing the non-fermented nectar to the fermented noni nectar, and to see what's the difference between the two, or are there any difference? What characteristics will you see in a fermented noni nectar that you do not see in a non-fermented noni nectar? And what do you see when you look at the whole study? It shows these two important things. Number one, the fermented noni nectar shows a characteristics of this. It increases the amount of phytonutrients compared to the non-fermented. This study is in agreement with previous studies that I've talked about. It also introduces, okay, not just the amount, but also introduces new phytonutrients not found in the puree or non-fermented nectar. Now, this is a great study because it also verified what has been done previously. Okay. In another study by Cheng Pelango, this group is a very interesting group because they get access to a lot of machinery that a lot of manufacturers and companies do not get access to, you know, in academics. And they found a few things that all in agreement with the previous studies. Number one, naturally fermented noni nectar contains higher amounts of phenolic compounds, okay? And the Brix levels in the noni fermented nectar, okay, it at the highest level. Usually the normal Brix is between 4 to 8. That's the normal, okay? So they found that, which is very important. Now, I might say that sometimes you see labels, things like erythroids and phenolic compounds, okay? Not all the compounds in noni are phenolics. So it is better and it's much more understandable if you want to highlight something is erythroids and phytonutrients, because all of those nutrients belong to the plants, the noni plant in this case, and we all use them for our purposes. Okay, so phytonutrients include everything, including the erythroids. And also they found 3 new phytonutrient compounds that are not being identified, in addition to some have been identified previously, like rutin and scopolamine. Okay, and we know rutin and scopolamine, they have very dynamic, increasingly good for our health. Okay, so and again, this also in agreeable with the previous studies. Now, Dr. Lin and colleagues, they found something interesting because they were looking for a few things, okay, using the fermented noni. And they wanted to know if the fermented noni is better protection for the liver, and what kind of protection do they offer. So they were looking at different markers. Number one, they found that noni enhanced the liver's antioxidant capacity. That's incredible. That has been found by others, but also confirmed by this study. And then number two, it helps detoxify the body when toxic materials enter the liver. You know the liver is one of the hard-working organs in the body. Everything we eat, everything we drink, those kind of things have to be detoxified by the liver. Okay, but what they found that was interesting to me, that the fermented noni nectar decreases the endoreticulum stress. Now, the endoplasmic reticulum, there's actually 2 types. Okay, there's one called the rough, and there's one called smooth. It has nothing with the feeling. It has to do with the appearance of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. That's where the ribosomes are located. And ribosomes is the place where proteins are synthesized. Okay, and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, usually not many people talk about that because they don't have any, they have something to do with the cytoplasm and also the cytoskeleton of the cells, but not compared to the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Now, the rough endoplasmic reticulum stress is actually an interesting, because not too many people know about them, okay? And here's something that I want you to know. This is very interesting because when you have the endoplasmic reticulum stressed out, a lot of the organs that connected to it will also be stressed out, okay? I think for all of us who are married, maybe I'll speak for myself, there's sometimes when your wife is stressed, and it seems like that everybody else is stressed out. Okay, so in that case, you gotta step up and do the things that your wife do or your husband do, so that relieve the stress from them, whether it be doing the dishes or cooking or whatever, taking care of the kids. So I want you to know that most people think that the rough endoplasmic reticulum is some kind of a structure that does not connect to anything. That's the wrong idea. In reality, the endoplasmic reticulum, the rough one, connected to almost all of the organelles inside the cell. That's why when it's stressed out, everything else stressed out, okay? From the picture, you can see the stress of the endoplasmic reticulum. By the way, those little dots, things like here, those are your ribosomes. Okay, if you can tell that when it's stressed out, because there are too many of the yellow ones. Okay, so the yellow ones are your free radicals. So when you have too much free radicals, it will lead to a lot of problems if you don't bring that into balance. Okay, so when that one is stressed out, the mitochondria is stressed out. Okay, and when the mitochondria is stressed out, it releases a lot of what we call cytochrome C. Now, we don't need to go any further than that, but there is certain level of cytochrome C that are found in the blood. And when it exceeds that, it means the mitochondria have been damaged. Okay? As you are aware, mitochondria is where the energy are produced. So if the mitochondria are stressed out, believe me, you probably will not get out of bed. You will not have that kind of energy to get out. The energy production has been reduced tremendously. Okay? And interesting, if they stress too long, meaning by time, you see these in the progression of several diseases that I mentioned: neurodegeneration, atherosclerosis, type 2, diabetes, liver diseases, and cancer, among other things. Okay? So this is one of the reasons why the fermented noni nectar is a strong antioxidant, but also have been shown by research that it decreased the stress of the endoplasmic reticulum, which also would decrease the stress of the mitochondria. And you know that taking your core care and SRQ is good for your mitochondria, and drinking your Nuku+Hiva. Okay? So now, this is an interesting study because I actually was the first scientist to discover that noni has an effect on the what we call matrix metalloproteinases enzymes, and previous so from previous work. And it's interesting, these enzymes are important, but they need to be controlled. So noni, the fermented noni nectar, was shown by this group that it decreases the MMP2 and MMP9 activities, which help control the natural, healthy inflammation that we talked about before, and angiogenesis. Now, if you get cut, angiogenesis need to be activated to a higher level in order to prevent you from bleeding yourself to death and to repair the tissues that have been damaged. Okay? It's interesting for those who suffer from diabetes, they always have a problem with wound healing. And when they put noni leaves on those wounds or drinking the noni, it will help with the wound healing for those who suffer from diabetes. But it also, interestingly, because it decreases those two enzymes, MMP2 and MMP9, it helps to maintain the health of the kidney itself. Okay, so in my previous work, like what I mentioned before, and I hope that you do not take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to draw attention to myself, but to share the things that I did discover. Found interestingly, because of research that was done in connection with cancer. You know that cancer cells develop wherever they are, and then they basically what they do, they build a plumbing system towards the blood vessels in order to supply themselves with the nutrients in exchange for the waste materials, and therefore they grow, the tumors grow in a bigger rate and a higher rate. Okay. What we found, interestingly, that the noni actually inhibit this kind. If you take a look here, it inhibits the formation of the blood vessels. Okay, in the research that was done. So I throw in that a little bit of knowledge just to share that with you. Okay. Now, it's interestingly though, because MMP2 and MMP9, the matrix metalloproteinases, they're all involved in the eye, the pancreas, the vascular, kidney, the colon, and the lungs, bone and joint, in wound healing, cardiovascular, your heart, and mental, okay? But they're always in control. The body always have control for them. But when they are no longer controlled, especially when we get older, they start to activate themselves. And they're also activated by free radicals, among other factors. That's why inhibition of these enzymes will lead to improve in your eye health, pancreas health, vascular health, kidney health, colon health, and so forth. Okay, this is why it's very important. Now, Dr. Huang and colleagues have done something that we thought about before, but never get the time to do it. They used the naturally fermented noni nectar, and they wanted to know if those things actually help out with your colon health. So they look at two bacteria, of course, there are a few of them, but they look specifically at lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. They wanted to know, those are the two biggest, but not the only bacteria that are good for your colon health, okay? They wanted to know, does noni have any effects on them? And interestingly, what they found was very, I would say personally, astounding, because they found that the fermented noni nectar actually promotes probiotic health by increasing those two bacteria in the colon, the lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. Okay, those are very important. And they also found that it increased the antioxidant, which is in agreement with previous studies. But they also found a few things. It promotes healthy inflammation, which we talked about previously. It also strengthens or moderates the immune function by suppressing a lot of these things, suppress the COX-2 enzymes. As you may know, if I can say something about COX-2, then we move on. COX-2 enzymes affects, when you have inflammation, COX-2 is expressed in a higher level. Under normal condition, it's not expressed. It's only induced by inflammation, whether you have inflammation from gut, wounds, or inflammation comes from bacterial, viral, or any other things like that. Okay, and when it expressed in a higher level, then the condition is worse off, because usually it's not controlled enough. It needs to be turned off. And that is one of the discoveries in connection with inflammation, that it actually suppresses the overexpress of COX-2. So it needs to be expressed, the light needs to be turned on, and when I'm done doing my homework or anything like that, it needs to be turned off. So COX-2 enzyme, it needs to be expressed in a higher level in order to fight off the inflammation, but it needs to be turned off, okay, or suppressed from being overexpressed. In most cases, the older we get, it seems like anything that turn on COX-2, it sometimes have a hard time turning it off, which leads to inflammation. And almost all diseases, a lot of scientists have agreed that diseases come from inflammation, whether it be low grade or high grade. Okay. So, Dr. Nayak, interestingly, published a paper on the wound healing of noni-leaf, and then I published a paper with a different mechanism of the wound healing of noni-leaf. And something that they did in her group found that the naturally fermented noni nectar by 52.6% decreased the blood sugar level in the diabetic rats, okay, induced. So they wanted to know, so they induced the rats to become diabetic, and then they wanted to know if the fermented noni nectar actually have any effects on the blood sugar level. And sure enough, it did. by 52.6%. That is astounding. And they also realized that those who were on the fermented noni nectar actually decreased body mass. That's weight loss for us humans. Okay, but then they saw that also when they sacrificed these rats and look at it, it significantly decreased the fatty liver. Okay, that is problematic. Fatty liver leads to a lot of other other human diseases. So, in other words, it becomes hepatoprotective. So the the naturally fermented noni nectar become protective. This is an in study by Lee and colleagues. They found that the naturally fermented noni nectar decreased blood glucose levels. Interestingly, from 400 milligram per deciliter to 211. Okay, this is in agreement with the previous study that I just mentioned. So when you have different scientists and different group of scientists worldwide found research that agreeable, that means it's the truth. Okay, but they also found that it's also significantly decreased the glycosylated hemoglobin, HbA1c. That is, for those of you who have accustomed to the HGEs or the advanced glycation end products, fermented noni nectar was shown to decrease that. And a lot of times, if you go to the doctor, you want to know about your HbA1c to see where it's at. Okay, it decreases the levels of that, enhance the insulin sensitivity. Okay, which meaning be able to take in the blood glucose. That's why it goes from 400 to 211, and significantly decrease the triglycerides and the so-called bad cholesterol, LDL. Okay, but the last thing that they found significantly increased the glucose uptake via increasing of the AMPK. Okay, that is an interesting because nobody has ever done research to show that fermented noni nectar or the noni fruit puree has an effect on AMPK. This, I believe, was the first. Okay, something interesting about the AMPK as you take a look at these pictures. I want you to know something here. This is what is called GLUT4. Okay, it's glucose transport enzymes number 4. In fact, GLUT4 are responsible for transporting excess glucose from your bloodstream to the cells. Therefore, you maintain a healthy blood glucose level. So when you do exercise, it actually kick in GLUT4 in the skeletal muscles to actually kick into a higher gear to transport a lot more. That's why exercise is very important for your health. And I know a lot of you are doing a lot of exercises, okay, for healthy body and things like that. So not only that the skeletal muscles by exercise activate GLUT4, by drinking the fermented noni nectar, it actually helps activate GLUT4 enzymes. Okay, so now, in addition to those things that I show you, here are some of the things if you do not have the sufficient AMPK. Okay, when there are deficit, you have these kind of problems. Okay, you will have problem with triglyceride, meaning there will be a high level. You have problems such as mitochondrial dysfunction. Okay, I'll just pick a few. You have less high. Okay, you have less HDL, but you have high LDL. So less of the good cholesterol and more of the bad cholesterol, which is not good. Okay, so those are some of the things that are associated when MPK is there's a deficit expression of AMPK. It's good to know that the fermented noni nectar also can help improve the AMPK level. Now, the previous study was done by Hatoko and colleagues. And here's something that I have been working on for a few years. Um, Fermented noni nectar helps with weight management, and then the reason why is helped by regulate the appetite via a interesting mechanism is called FOX1, okay, FOX01, but most people call it FOX1, and it's interesting because when the FOX1 is expressed in a higher level, okay, that's you get obese, but when it expressed less or in a lower level, then whatever the mice that have those, it become leaner. Okay, and also not just because it regulates lessen the amount of FOX1 expression, but also inhibit the production of glucose that always take place in the liver. Okay, which will also help you to regulate blood glucose, which leads to weight management among other things. It also improved glucose and insulin tolerance when they were looking at it at the fasting glucose in a high-fat diet. Okay, so this is an interesting mechanism, and this is the first study done by Hatoko and colleagues looking at weight management and the effects on the appetite using the fermented noni nectar, inhibiting our suppression of FOX1. I hope that you see that a lot of these research, what they found, sometimes they cross paths. Okay, so it shows that it significantly lowered blood glucose in the induced diabetic male rats. Okay, and take a look at this little picture. Here's the normal, and when it's hypo, meaning less. Look, there's less sugar in there. When it's hyper, meaning more, that you have that kind of problem. Okay, so it significantly improves wound healing, the non-fermented nectar, as we have discussed previously with different mechanisms, but also prevent the liver degeneration that I always find in diabetic-induced rats. Now, I had an opportunity to see this type of rats when I was in graduate school, and when you compare the normal rats to diabetic-induced rats, they are, how would I say? You can tell by looking. It's almost like looking at a nice apple that have nice color and things, and look at an apple that have been left over for like 6 to 8 months. Okay, the differences in the color and the shape and everything, it's pretty sad when you look at it. So interesting research, they show that the fermented noni nectar actually prevent those kind of liver degenerations. Okay. Senga and Cow, an interesting tool. They always look at, one of the things they look at is what we call NAF2 activator. Okay, everybody who I know there are some of you are familiar with NAF2 activator. It's usually almost a thermostat of the body. Okay, if you think about your home, especially for those of you who live in hot climate, it should be like in my home. I always set it to 80, but when I get home, I want it to be at 79. Okay, so therefore it's a little bit cooler. So the body, when it detects itself that has a lot of free radicals. Now, I want to point out to you that free radicals are not bad. Okay, free radicals are good because they have antimicrobial properties at a certain level. But for most cases, free radicals have far exceeds the level that is beneficial to humans, which leads to a lot of free radicals attacking a lot of the organs of the body, sometimes the eye, faces, and things like that. Okay, or they activate those enzymes that I mentioned before. It's called the MMP2 and MMP9. Okay, among others. So they found that the fermented noni nectar actually activates the NAF2, which will induce the cytoprotective genes, reduce the oxidative stress. Therefore, you can have a normal wound healing in a diabetic condition. But they also found something interesting, which we have seen seems to repeat itself, new phytocompounds that are found in noni. At least these guys have found the name. okay, that are NAF2 activators. So the fermented noni nectar contain these compounds, the 4-methyl catechol, 4-ethyl catechol, and 4-vinyl catechol. Okay, so all of these three compounds, interestingly, they activate NAF2. So noni, fermented noni nectar, which we use in Nuku+Hiva, this is one of the reasons why we use them, because it's an activator of NAF2. Now, in order to understand this last thing here, we look at the ethanol. Okay, whoever drink ethanol, it also broken down by an enzyme. Okay, it's called alcohol dehydrogenase, which means it removes a hydrogen from the alcohol, and it becomes what we call acetaldehyde. Now, women are familiar with this compound because there is a relative that is called formaldehyde that are also used for fingernail polishing removal. Okay, and from that it becomes what we call the acetic acid. That's the form that is safe for us humans. The enzyme is called the acetaldehyde dehydrogenase, also helped by glutathione or GSH. It becomes acetic acid, which is the safest form for us humans, okay, when we drink alcohol of some kind. Now, I want you to know, though, that the acetaldehyde compound is 30 times more toxic than the ethanol that you started with, okay? And this has the balance between this acetaldehyde and also the acetic acid leads to a lot of you are familiar with those who have hangovers, among other things. Okay. Now, just to show you a little bit of, so that way you can see it better, and picture speaks louder than words. Okay. So start here from the ethanol. Okay. Let's start on my left, the normal one. Ethanol, broken down by the ethanol, okay, by the alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme. They turn into the acetaldehyde, okay, and then immediately work on by the acetaldehyde dehydrogenase 2. And then they become acetic acid. These are safe. The body can use this for other things, and I'll show you some of those things. But interestingly, though, acetic acid also can help preserving things, okay? And noni has its own natural preservatives, as a matter of fact. So in the accumulation of those, here's the problematic one, ethanol broken down by the same enzymes, and you realize that you have too many of the acetaldehyde and less of the acetic acid, okay? So there is a dysfunction between converting these, remember they're 30 times more toxic, to the less toxic ones, okay? I think we can skip that one. Okay. Chang, interestingly, we have, I'm sorry, we have less minute now, but naturally fermented noni nectar accelerate the alcohol clearance, okay? That's why I show you a few of those couple slides before, so this thing can make sense to you and to me, okay? So the naturally fermented noni nectar, it accelerates the removal of alcohol by increasing the enzymes that we talk about, the alcohol dehydrogenase and the acetaldehyde dehydrogenase activities significantly, okay? It also decreases the process of lipogenesis. That's why the liver, remember the fatty liver? That's one of the reasons why. And increases the fatty acid oxidation, okay? By burning those fatty acids, not only you get precursors for other good things, but also you get energy out of it, which might explain why a lot of you, when you drink the Nuku+Hiva, you get a lot more energy, among other things. Again, it increases antioxidant glutathione, which help in the removal of the alcohol, decreases a lot of these that are associated with inflammation. Remember, take a look. Here is TNF alpha again. It shows up again, COX-2 enzymes. But interestingly, when the liver is injured by something, whether by chemical or physical, it releases a lot of the AST or ALT, okay? That's why you sometimes have to test for those to see if the liver is being compromised. And noni actually decreases those amount by repairing the liver itself, and that's why you have less, okay? It was shown in their research that decreased significantly the liver injury enzymes. Okay, so the naturally fermented noni nectar increases the amount of acetic acid in the noni itself. And that compound is also the major compound that you find in vinegar, okay? Interestingly, little side note, the acetic acid suppresses body fat accumulation by doing one thing, which is increasing the fatty acid oxidation, which we have seen previously, okay? So this is a very important compound. I think we can skip this one since we're coming out of time, but when you ferment the noni nectar, it decreases the sugar content by 37% in just 7 days after you ferment them. The organic acids, which are very helpful to the body, it reached the maximum by 28 days of fermentation, okay? Which is why for us at Sanoa, our fermentation is always a month or 30 days, okay? And then you see a lot of the non-volatile acids in the fermented juice, okay? And let me just point out a few, okay, since we have less time. Here is a compound that only appears on fermented noni nectar. This is an oxidized form of vitamin C. Like what I said before, when you fermented it and you test for vitamin C, there is less vitamin C. But what they forgot to test is to test for the oxidized form of vitamin C, which is the hydroascorbic acid, which is huge. And here are some of the benefits that have been researched by other people, okay? It offers neuroprotection in the experimental stroke model that they use. Here are some of the references here, just in case. And it also has antiviral effects. Interestingly, inhibits the herpes simplex virus by doing something interesting. They speculate that probably at the step of envelopment of viral neurocapsids, okay? That's happened also in the Golgi apparatus of the infected cells, okay? And malonic acid, it helps remove toxic metals, chelation of some kind. Succinic acid, it links the cellular metabolism to the regulation of cellular function. Tartaric acid, antioxidant, anti-inflammation. Citric acid, enhance the antioxidant activities of enzymes. It becomes like an alkalizing agent in itself. And the last but not the least, the butyric acid, okay? This is interesting because a lot of research have been done on that acid itself. Butyric acid, it improves the gut health. Remember, we showed you a couple studies before that the fermented noni nectar improves gut health. Perhaps this is one of those things that help. Act as an energy source for colon cells. Interestingly, the bacteria that live in the colon, they use butyric acid as their source of energy. Okay, this is very important, and has anti-inflammation. It also helps the body to be more in a state of readiness. Okay, it protects the mitochondria. But interestingly, butyric acid is a short-chain fatty acid that are found in fermented noni nectar in a higher level. Now, lead. What the interesting study, I also mentioned this previously since we're coming out of time. It shows that when the study they have, they know the cancer in the mice, okay, in rats, and then they wanted to see if you put some more tumors in the mice, they know how many they put in. What can the fermented noni nectar do? Interestingly, they have that those that have the tumors, and then they have them drink the noni, okay, before and even after, it shows that those mice were able to reject 100% of the tumor challenge. Okay, if I introduce 100 tumor, none of those tumors sticks to anything at all. But also it helped kind of kill off some 75% of the existing tumors in the mice. That's an interesting research concerning fermented noni nectar with the anti-cancer effects. Okay, I'm sure there are a lot more research to be done in this, and we look forward to doing a lot more of this research with Nuku+Hiva to see what effects does it has on this kind of model. Okay. Okay. Probiotics, we already talked about that, so we'll skip that. Okay. My friends, hopefully, my hope for this past hour was for you to have or to gain a better understanding of the answers to why we at Sanoa is using the combination of fermented noni nectar and the noni fruit puree. The combination of those two are powerful, and you know from what I have shown you in this 1 hour that it has more phytonutrients and more erythroids. Okay. As always, I appreciate your attendance. I want you to know that I'm grateful that you were here so that we can share these things with you. Please direct all your questions to me, send it to me. Here's my email address. Then I will respond to you personally. Okay. I thank you. We want to be helpful to you as you build your business there. And when you come across questions, please send them to me. I would love to connect with you and help answer those questions. Okay. We appreciate what you do there, and we know that it's hard work, and we love you and we appreciate you. Okay. And of course, Nuku+Hiva is loved by millions worldwide. Again, we love you, and we hope to support you, and we will support you in everything that we can do from here to help you grow your business. Thank you.